We'll take a question here, center right. Remember to state your name and affiliation.
Coach Jared Almeidas with Red Raider Sports. Could you just give us your first impressions on Donovan Smith and what kind of impact you expect him to have this season?
I've been very impressed with Donovan. He's played a lot of ball. So he's played in 21 games, and I think that's important. We lost a very seasoned quarterback in Clayton Tune. He's been our guy for 4 years and has been a model of consistency and just a model program player. Wish him all the luck in the NFL, but that opens it up to who's next. And I was talking with Andre Ware up there about this a minute ago. The University of Houston's had really good quarterback play over the years. From Andre back in the day to David Klingler to Kevin Cobb to Case Keenum, who I coached. All right, now we're back to when I coached Case for 2 years in 08, 09, and then Tune's a part of that conversation as well. So the expectations are high for Donovan, but I felt like it was important to bring a guy in with experience, with Big 12 experience. We did that at a number of other positions as well. But Donovan's he's impressed me. I think his best days are ahead of him. He's only been playing quarterback for a couple of years, so he's got the upper hand right now based on 21 games of experience. But Lucas Coley has been battling and is really competing hard, and he's got a lot of good football ahead of him as well. We brought in a junior college kid from California, Uwe Ali, who's got loads of potential, and so we got some guys to choose from. But to answer your question, I've been impressed with Donovan. He's 6'5", 240, and has game experience in the Big 12.
We'll go to a question here, center right.
All right, Coach Lynn Harrington with Stay Alive in Power 5. How you doing today?
Very good.
All right. So everyone knows the Houston area is a big recruiting hotbed. I mean, you got teams like LSU come from the SEC that's always invading the area for prospects. With Houston now being in the Big 12, do you think that gives you a recruiting advantage moving forward?
That certainly can't hurt. You mentioned one school. There's approximately 64 other schools that are in Power 5 football as well. I mean, it's coast to coast, man. I mean, the one advantage that you have at Houston is it's the most centrally located, city, one of them, in the United States. So the good news is we have 6 million people that we have to choose from. The bad news is every other school in the country is coming to Houston as well. There's a lot of good places out there. We have 13 other schools in the Big 12 that are awesome institutions and have great advantages in each of their own way. But there's 4 other Power 5 schools conferences out there that all come to Houston. So, our deal is, 3 of the 4 young men that I have here with me today are Houston based. They're 3 kids that grew up in Houston, could have went other places and chose to stay at the University of Houston. I think that's going to happen more when it comes to being able to talk Power 5 and talk Big 12. It's certainly going to help. By no means is it going to be a slam dunk just because we're now in the Big 12.
Center right, 4th row, in the green.
Hi, Coach. Steve Helwick, SB Nation. Last year in non-conference back-to-back games, you use that 2-game stretch as kind of a barometer to see how prepared you are to face a Big 12 schedule on a week-to-week basis in this conference.
Well, every year is different. 42 spots on our roster this year are new. Okay, so every year is different. Every team's different. I was very careful with talking too much Big 12 prior to January I think we probably made a little bit too big of a deal playing Kansas after we lost to Texas Tech, the way that we lost to Texas Tech. It was just a hard way to lose. And, we had another opportunity to play a Big 12 quality school in the University of Kansas, who was playing lights out at the time, as good as anybody in the country, I would argue, when we played them. I think we pressed too much a little bit, just based on, this is what it's going to be like, but I tried not to make that big of a deal about it. Since January, yeah, I've talked about it because that's the way it's going to be. It's going to be like that every week. So, but every team's different. This team is different than last year's team. It's my job to kind of figure out how it's different and what we got to do to be successful.
Joe Duarte, Houston Chronicle.
Hi, JD.
Hey, Dana. Follow up to the quarterback question. Do you have a timeline on when you'd like to get that settled in camp? And my other question was, being back in the league, is there anything that you learned from the first time around that applies this time, or is the league completely different where there's not a lot of things to sort of pick up from?
It's funny, I was talking with Case Keenum the other day, and I asked him about competition. Okay, so back when we were here in 2008, it was Blake Joseph and Case Keenum were battling back and forth. And, I asked him the importance of when you name a starter. And he goes, I wouldn't. Just let them compete, because if they compete, it makes them better. And then it should take care of itself. And so I'm not concerned with it right now. They've been 50-50, and we knew they were going to be 50-50, and they're going to continue to be 50-50 until one just makes it clear. Okay, and so I think that's going to naturally take care of itself. I'm a big proponent in letting kids compete. Let's compete in for the next 2 weeks when we do some stuff, compete. When we get into camp, compete. And the more competition we have at every single position, which I do feel like we have more competition at every single position now than we did last year, let them compete for playing time, because that's what makes them better. Second part, I think with the experience that I've had in the Big 12 and doing this transition in the past, I think it's been helpful over the last 18 months. A lot of closed door meetings with Pez and administrators and fundraising and, scheduling, staffing, budgets, all that stuff. I mean, I think it's been very beneficial. It kind of stops now, right? I mean, everybody that comes up here to talk has Big 12 experience, and they run their own programs. And this is the deepest conference in the country. By adding the 4 schools that we add, I think it adds to the deepest conference in the country. So better get ready to line up and, prepare your best each and every week to put your best foot forward. And I think we will do that, and I think we'll be competitive.
We'll go to the very back.
Hey, Coach, Robert Malvez, Scott and Holman podcast. Wanted to, now that we have the official renderings of the football only specific building, what is the next step? Seeing as how you've done this transition before, what's the next step in getting us to a Big 12 level?
It's just got time. That's the only thing, is time. That building is going to happen. It's going to start in December. We'll all get excited about it once we see dirt moving, but it's still time. Okay. And, there's a lot of Big 12 schools that are full share right now. Well, the only way we're going to be full share is time, and so, it's going to be 3 years before we're on equal playing field. That doesn't give you any excuses to not be successful and not be competitive. That's just going to take time, 3 years, but it's going to happen. You can mark your calendar 3 years from now that we're going to have what we need. But in the meantime, we expect to line up, be competitive, recruit at a high level, compete at a high level, and that's what we're going to do.
Go back center left.
Hey, Coach, Faith Douglas here with KLBK Sports. And, Texas Tech and Houston go far back to the Southwest Conference, and you even spent quite a bit of time at Jones AT&T Stadium on the home side. What's that game going to be like? Is there a new rival brewing between Texas Tech and Houston?
Well, it would have been better if we had won last year. You know, double overtime loss kind of hurt a little bit. You know, obviously have a lot of familiarity with that program, spending 8 great years there. I hear that the late, great Mike Leach and Cliff Kingsbury are getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I don't think it's irony that they chose the Houston game for that. So that'd be neat to witness. Yeah, I think, you know, I think those rivals are going to naturally take care of themselves. You know, when it's kind of the opposite of what I did back in 2011 when West Virginia came into the Big 12. You know, it was a big day for West Virginia, but there was no prior relationships with anybody. You know, so everybody that West Virginia was playing was new. You know, now the University of Houston's coming into the Big 12. Well, we got history with BYU. We've got history with Cincinnati, Central Florida, recently. Okay, and then, you know, obviously my familiarity with West Virginia. But then you go back to the old Southwest Conference back in 1990, the late 80s and early 90s, where it was Texas and TCU and Texas Tech and Baylor and Oklahoma State. And so those will get rekindled. And so I think it'll happen actually a little bit quicker. That's great for college football. That's great for the Big 12. Certainly that's great for the University of Houston and our fan base.
Back to the far left.
Randall Sweet with All Sooners. You guys lost a lot of production at the skill positions from last year. How do you plan on replacing that in the midst of entering a new conference?
Yeah, that's the one thing I'm pretty comfortable with. You know, Tank Dell was pretty special. You know, 3rd round draft pick, dynamic player. He kind of took the ball from other people a lot. You know, I don't know if we're going to have like the one guy with 1,500 yards. But we got 3 starters returning with Matt Golden, who's a special player, Joseph Manjack, was a contributor in 5 games last year. Sam Brown made some big plays. A couple of transfers coming in that have Power 5 experience. And then we recruited very well at that spot. So it's a lot of competition, you know, and a lot of very talented players that, quite frankly, we wouldn't have got if it wasn't for the Big 12. So I'm excited about coaching those guys. That's the least of my worries with receivers. I spend most of my time with other things other than that.
Go to left center.
Hey, Dana, Colin Wilson with the Action Network. Can we talk about the hiring of Amon Nagavi, your new co-OC? He was Tulane's offensive line coach. Amazing, vicious attack that they had. How does that add to Donovan Smith and Houston's ground attack?
So Amon Nagavi is it's an interesting story. You know, he's about as O-line as O-line gets. Katy High School, you know, McNeese State, you know, small college, Louisiana Monroe, Georgia State. I don't know how many people witnessed what Tulane did again, and is one of the better ones that I've been around in the short period of time that I've been with him. So he's been a great fit. He's as Houston gets. Grew up there, loves the city. Gary Joseph's a pretty big-time high school coach in this state. Iman was smart enough to marry his daughter. So we're excited to have Iman, and, you know, he's bringing something different to the table when it comes to a more well-rounded offensive line group.
We have time for one final question. We'll go to the second row, center right.
Cole Thompson, FanNation.com. Dana, when you look at the Big 12 in general, you mentioned conference. Last year, TCU was the 7th best odds to win the Big 12. The year before, Baylor was the 6th best odds to win the Big 12. Would you also consider this maybe the most open conference where there's always an opportunity for a team that isn't ranked inside the top 5 to speak into the conversation, make it Arlington?
Well, probably, but every year is different. I think Sark and the University of Texas would disagree with that assessment right now because they're picked to win it, and they're pretty good. It's just a deep difference. There's never been more parity than there is right now in college football. This conference is crazy. Just watching it outside, being a part of it for 17 years, and then being on the outside looking in for the last 4 years. I watched every game, and I followed it, and there's just so much parity in this league. Without getting too much into it, there used to be a few layups back in the day. There ain't any layups, and there's just the parity is good. The coaching is unbelievable. The facilities are spectacular. The support is unbelievable. I'm so excited to be back in the league, and the University of Houston with the situation that we're in currently. A lot of work to be done, a lot of work ahead of us. We understand that. We're excited about it.
Thank you, Coach.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll go Cougars.
We'll start up again at 2:10 with Kansas coach Lance Leipold.